The number two, the number of negative mind and critical mind. Already that doesn't sound very fun, does it? I mean, you would be right. The number two is the number of the mind, but the duality of the mind. So again, the number one is the individual. The number two is duality. So it's male, female, good, bad, right, wrong, masculine, feminine. That duality that exists in this world all over the place, because half of the day is light and half of the day is dark, and the world is spinning. And so we're constantly in this state of change. When you are focused on the one, the I, you're unified, or hopefully you're unified, or you're trying to be unified. But as soon as the mind separates and creates a judgment, oh, this is good, this is bad, this is you, this is me, the moment you have that division, instantly you have problems. This is the challenge that we're all down here doing, is we're living in a constant state of flux between the dualities. You are not just light. You are not just dark. You are not just good. You are not just bad. You are not just female. You are not just male. You actually are both of those. And you're this unique configuration at different times. For myself, there are moments that I have to put on my masculine and go deal with the super rich, super smarty pants people. And I have to be very direct and very strong and very calm and very certain and very directed, which is masculine. And then there are other moments that I need to drop into my feminine. I need to surrender more. I need to be more open with my feelings. I need to flow. I need to follow the flow, not my logical mind. But whenever you see the number two, it's the angels kind of saying to you, are you noticing where you're in duality? Are you noticing that you're polarized maybe into one position over another? This is important to kind of notice, because in our world right now, everybody is polarized in I'm right, which is one of the reasons I want to do these videos. There is no right or wrong. I mean, there is us, there is how it works together, but in the duality of negative mind or critical mind, there is this duality. So our higher functioning brain wants to say that I'm a good person, while we have this reptilian brain underneath here that is running around doing other things that are not acceptable to our higher functioning mind, which is why it's so common. I mean, it's just like so shockingly common that you get a televangelist that, you know, is like, oh, I'm this really good person. I'm going to inspire you to be a good person. You just have to do what I say. Interesting. And if you do what I say, I'm going to lead you like a little sheep over here, and you're going to give me all your money. And then in the meantime, you don't get to notice or care that I'm buying huge planes and I'm a selfish asshole. But you aren't going to notice that because you're so polarized over here, trying to be good, trying to not be judgmental. And then at the same time, I'm going to be having sex with prostitutes over here, but you don't know about it until I get arrested. There's always the light and the dark in everyone, in me, in you, in everybody. But the problem comes in when you don't own your own darkness. And that is hugely a problem at the moment. If you are attracted to a particular archetype, a person, a movie star, a movie character, a character in a book, then you're going to try and align energetically with the most positive aspects of that trait. But there always lurks in the darkness the shadow. And so you choose, by polarizing towards the light, you choose not to see the dark. And so, you know, you hear it all the time that people are like, well, I know that person does this, but I'm still going to, choose them. And I'm like, it's actually a form of abuse. It really is. It's a form of abuse. So you're dealing with a person who's like, I know this person beats me up. I know that they hurt me, but I know they also really love me. So I'm going to stay. And I'm like, but you're in danger, right? And people make this mistake all the time. They choose to listen to or pay attention to what they want to pay attention to, and they don't pay attention to the things that are lurking in the shadows and what is just uncomfortable for them to pay attention to. And I go, you can't make good, consciously clear choices if you don't see both. And I'm not saying you have to judge both. I'm just saying you have to know both exist. Both exist in the same time and space. And everyone is in that duality. We're all dancing with our own shadow. We're all dancing with our own duality. We all have our little places where we are afraid, or we're greedy, or we want what we want, or we, are going to manipulate others, or, we all have these parts. But the trick is, are you conscious of the parts? Because if you're not conscious of the parts, that's the problem. Because then those unconscious selves come out through the negative mind and manipulate. I remember something Carlos Castaneda said in one of his books, that Don Juan said, you are a luminous cocoon, and within that cocoon are emanations that contain your awareness. So there are emanations that are lit up because you're aware of them, and that's awesome. But there are these emanations that are dark, that you have not paid attention to, you've not grown through, you've not learned from, and so they're just unlit. They're just unlit. And what happens is those dark emanations externalize in your world as people and situations, so that you have to engage that darkness. So if you are surrounded by angry people, you might want to look at if you're angry. But I'm not saying you are acting angry. I'm saying that some part of you inside is angry at some part of you. And it could be deeply suppressed. I mean, it could be absolutely deeply suppressed. But, you want to look at your environment and what keeps showing up in your environment, because that's the duality. And that is the manifestation of the unlit aspects of your cocoon that you don't want to look at. So it's like, well, I don't want to look at that. I'm like, I get that. I don't like to look at it either. I mean, it's like, I don't like to look at my dark sides either. Like, absolutely. But there's so much value in hidden in the darkness when you understand why it's there, or why it's suppressed, or why you're afraid of it, or who judged it when you were a kid and told you that it wasn't good and it wasn't okay. There's so much healing that can take place when you are going to allow in that duality and the balance of that duality. So, as a result, the number 2 is the number of duality and negative mind. So I'll say it like this. Did you ever notice that the people that are light polarized are incredibly negative? That are incredibly judgmental? Right? Because they disowned their negativity. That doesn't mean it's not there. It just means that they don't look at it. They don't pay attention to it. They don't own it. And so it kind of lashes out. It kind of attacks people, I mean, I've always been amazed that, and again, raised Catholic. So, you go to church on Sunday and these people are doing crazy things afterwards that I'm like, did you not hear what was going on? I mean, like, did you not hear the sermon? Did you not read, what we were reading in the Bible that day? And I'm like, no, they actually didn't. That's the point. Like, they're like, oh, I don't do that. I'm not angry. And it's like, yeah, actually you're angry, and they're like, oh, no, I'm not, and I'm like, so what happens is that we have these emotions that get suppressed, and when they get suppressed, they distort, and when they distort, they come out as dysfunction. And those kinks, those quirks, those idiosyncrasies that we see in people, and we're like, oh, and what I find is that if you don't address those negative parts, then they grow. They grow and they get bigger and they get more distorted and they get more weird. So I can tell you that, I've seen this a lot, that there was a person that I danced with many, many years ago, and he had this interesting personality quirk, and we used to just go, oh, that silly little person, you kind of let people get away with it when they're younger. But then I met him 30 years later, and that quirk had distorted into a monster of a dysfunctional aspect because nobody had ever called him out on it, or they hadn't called him out on it in a way that it had worked. And I was horrified. I was just like, oh my God, like, seriously, like, whoa, right? So there are these places that we all have. I'm not saying I don't have my own, but the key is consciousness and awareness, and for you to notice that you're doing it, because only then can you be aware of it. So the positive side of the duality of the mind is to recognize, oh, I've got these two really intense sides, and they are at war with each other. They're fighting. And so no wonder I've got conflict in my life, because I'm actually at war with my own essential nature. So the most positive side of the number 2 is learning, knowledge, the quest for knowledge, getting a PhD, getting a degree, becoming extremely educated in a particular area, using the mind and fine-tuning the mind and honing the mind as a tool for the soul. Notice how I said that. Most people use their mind as a weapon for their ego. And that is the worst way to move the number 2. You want to move the number 2 like, I don't have the answer to this. I don't understand what's going on. So I'm going to read books on codependency. I'm going to read books on relationship because I don't understand what keeps going on in my relationship. I'm going to go to a therapist. I'm going to go to a personal growth workshop. I'm going to meditate. I'm going to do yoga. I'm going to discover and uncover what's going on inside of me so that I can not keep getting caught by the same matrix. But that requires intelligence. And there are a lot of people that are just going, I'm right. And I know I'm right. And I don't need the truth. I don't need more information. Nope. It's like, la, 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 la. I'm happy with my distortion. And they are, because you can be comfortable knowing the truth is uncomfortable. Knowing the places that I'm off is uncomfortable. It's not comfortable. I remember that the gurus were saying to me between 16 and 28, they're like, Suzanne, you're doing this thing and you're angry. And I'm like, oh, I'm not angry. I meditate every day. It's like, oh God. And so argue for your limitation. And sure enough, it is yours, right? So I couldn't see it. I was blind. It was like I had a donut over my eye, and the teacher is saying, Suzanne, you have a donut over your eye. And I'm like, no, I don't, because I'm looking through the hole. But that doesn't mean everybody's not seeing the donut, right? And I'm sure you've had plenty of people in your life that you're like, can't they see that? I'm like, no, they aren't balanced within their own duality. They're polarized in one side. So, and then it was finally a teacher of mine that was a woman, and I think it might have worked because it was a woman, and the woman's approach was a little better. And she said to me, Suzanne, it's like I say jump and you say how high. And you do everything I say to do, and I always feel like you're hiding something. And I just start to get close to it, and you move it. And if I had to guess, I would say it's a lot of anger and resentment. But I don't think you like to see yourself that way. So until you are safe with you and you can tell yourself the truth about what you're angry about and you're resentful about, you're actually not going to let anybody in there. The moment she said it like that, I was like, holy crap, I know what she's talking about. Like, oh my God, I do that. Like, it was like when the information came in a way that it could get past my defenses, and it could get past my filter, and it could get past my ego. I was like working on it for the next 10 years. And it was a very powerful transition for me. So again, the number 2 is knowledge. The number 2 is the seeking of knowledge in its most positive form. The number 2 is about seeking the truth. Okay, but most people just want to validate their experience in their own reality. They aren't really looking for truth. They're looking for validation. And I go, that's a childish, narcissistic way to live your life. You'll never grow up. And I've seen lots of very old people that are caught in a loop, a very childlike loop, that they've never really grown up. They never had to grow up. Nobody ever called them out on it for whatever reason. And just like me, I think that we all have big stuck places that until we do it, nobody else will let us, we won't let anybody else help us do that. Like we'll say, oh no, they don't know what they're talking about. They're wrong. And you see this so much happening in the world right now that we've got a whole bunch of petulant child minds that believe what they believe because it's comfortable and it validates themselves rather than actually going and seeking the truth in the highest sense. And that is needed right now. We need the truth. We need people who will see past their own lenses and look at not just what they're comfortable with, but really what they're uncomfortable with. Because what happens is if you don't look at what you're uncomfortable with, that uncomfortableness will manifest externally in the world, which is what it's doing right now. So we've got this whole world that is in misery and uncomfortable. And it'll get worse. It'll absolutely get worse because clearly the universe says enough of this distortion, enough of the lying, enough of the self-lying, enough of the self-medicating, enough of telling yourself you're okay when you're really not okay. Enough. And the world is getting worse and worse and worse. And it's like coming in like walls. And it's crushing in on us until we go, oh my God, that I'm doing part of this. I mean, I'm not saying everybody's doing all of it, but I think that we're all co-contributing in some way to this bigger pattern that's manifesting. And each of us has to take responsibility for our own pieces, whether you do it through muscle energy balancing, kinesiology, and homeopathy. I don't care how you do it. I don't care if you do it through tarot cards and you keep getting the devil card and you're like, I am not the devil. I'm like, well, where are you, the devil? Can we look at that and really unearth shadow, because the shadow is killing the world. The shadow is suffocating the world. The lies and the distortions that we've been telling ourselves for way too long are destroying the good things in this world. And it's up to us. We have to say, we're responsible. It's time to do it different. I need to look at this differently. So take a look today. If you see a number 2 around you, suddenly pops up on a license plate or something like that, just notice where am I in duality? Where am I lying to myself? Where am I not telling myself the truth? Where am I repressing something that is trying to speak to me in my external world? So if a lot of people keep telling you the same thing, they are not wrong. I think that's hard to hear sometimes. I think people try to tell us. And if we keep hearing the same thing, I mean, the gurus kept telling me, they were like, Suzanne, you're doing that. I'm like, why do they keep saying that? Why do they keep saying that to me? I am not doing that. I'm like, oh God. It's funny. We have to have a sense of humor about it because otherwise it's excruciatingly painful. We can't see what we can't see because we don't want to see it. Not because it's not there, but because we don't want to see it. And there's a place that you have to be willing. One of my teachers used to harp on this, that it's really about willingness. Willingness to get more information. Willingness to seek your own knowledge. Willingness to not listen to other people's information, but to find your own information. You have to be willing. And right now there's not enough willingness in the world. And the number 2 says it is time to seek out more information to uncover the truth, that only through knowledge will you uncover the truth. And the truth is uncomfortable. The truth is going to hurt. The truth is going to be painful. And we have to really get real about that. And that is the only way to heal something, is to take responsibility for your actions. And the number 2 in its highest form is about taking responsibility for all your choices and all your actions in the world. Thanks.